This is a pandemic of the unvaccinated. We must increase vaccinations among the unvaccinated with new vaccination requirements.
It's not going to work. We have other countries with much higher rates of vaccination, and they're seeing record surges of COVID because that's what viruses do.
Many of us are frustrated with the nearly 80 million Americans who are still not vaccinated.
Them, their freedom. I want my freedom to live.
Rest in peace, Wheezy.
We are going to need the people to engage in age-old American tradition of simply saying, no, I'm not going to comply. Now, what are you going to do about it? It never stops. They want things to get worse because they want you to suffer so that they can grandstand on your suffering and push for even more control.
They have criminalized freedom. They've made getting sick illegal.
This isn't about COVID any more than the Patriot Act was about Al-Qaeda. It's about government asserting more control over your lives, your rights, your properties, and in this case, your bodily autonomy.
It has a lot of vaccinated people alarmed because of the power grab that's involved.
Enough is enough. We better change our tune and start resisting.
Government makes up less than 1% of the population. If even 5 or 10% of Americans simply refuse to comply, all of this goes away.
Absolutely, this is the hill worth dying on.
We haven't given the statutory authority to any agency to do this kind of thing.
There is no such thing as government power. There's only what we are willing to comply to.
We're in the tough stretch, and it could last for a while.
That's what this has always been about. It's never about what they say it is. It's about controlling you. And it ends when we decide to end it.
This BS is going to stop.
It's time for us to
There's
wake
only
up.
one way to fight back against this, and it's mass non-compliance.
This is the most important thing to fight against.
You can help stop this. You are the power.
There's nothing, not a single thing we're unable to do if we do it together.
Well, I've heard a lot of you make the, I don't know, the cry, the that you're sick of me talking about libertarian drama, and I'm just a sadomasochist in this way, but we're going to talk about some more libertarian drama today. Some post-libertarian drama. New, brand new, exciting, new brand of libertarianism. We're going to get into it. We're going to talk to the man, the myth, the legend, Pete in a moment. Before we do, let's kick this intro, and then we'll jump into what you're here for. Let's get weird.
Excuse me, are y'all with the cult?
We're not a cult. We're an organization that promotes love.
Yeah, this is it.
The following is a Goulash Media production. goulashmedia.net.
I'll make questionable decisions. I'll be in fact of all I soul. Judge me for my sins. Live on your image.
That's right. We're back. Welcome back to the least comfortable show on the web. It is The System Is Down, where we talk about all the uncomfortable topics like conspiracies, politics, religion, and a whole lot of libertarian drama. This is the place where you come to get your panties in a wad if you like that sort of thing. And if you don't, then this isn't the place for you. So go away. Kill the music. It's very distracting. But welcome back. If you're new here, welcome to the show. Go find the person who invited you. Give him a big hashtag #MeToo, kiss on the mouth, and slap on the rear from me and from you, because I appreciate you being here and because you're going to enjoy it. And I know you're going to enjoy it because we're talking to Pete. Before we get into that, I do have to remind you guys about our sponsors. And I know that there's one person who just joined last night who's not been added to this list yet. I'll get you on there by Wednesday. Don't worry about it. I don't remember your name. But to the rest of you, this show is sponsored by you guys in the Downers Club. Keith Composition, Cole something, Brittany Bowen, Representation Zero, Shannon Martinez, Brian Johnson, Carolina B. Jack Casey, Rick Duran, Craig DeCosta, Joe Kabinski, Mitchell Caswell, Michael something, Howie Snowden, Champion Pundit Academy, David White, Justin Zelinsky, Liberty Hippie, William Wells, and others. If you'd like to get your name on that list and get more weird, more raw, more offensive, more weekly content, bonus episodes of the show every single gosh darn week, go on over to patreon.com/The System Is Down and sign up for the Downers Club, where you'll get all that stuff. We do bonus episodes, we do extended interviews, we do movie and TV reviews, we do all sorts of weird shit, because we don't just talk about liberty drama. Sometimes we live life, and it is recorded over at patreon.com/The System Is Down. Sign up and support the show for as little as $5 a month. That is literally the cost of one super chat per month. And I'm not allowed to monetize. I'm not allowed to do super chats. So if you'd be so kind, I'd greatly appreciate it. And you'll get something in response other than me just reading your comment out loud like Josh Smith does. But anyway, we are also sponsored by a couple other folks. I do have to mention, we are sponsored by the shirt store, thesystemisdown.com or thesystemisdown.tv/store, where we've got lots of great shirts like the Let's Go Brandon Classic. We've got the latest Hail Meta. You can get that at hailmeta.com or at this, but if you don't get the annoying joke that we've been bothering everybody with, we'll talk more about that on Wednesday. hailmeta.com. You can also get the I Survived the Forever Purge and all I got was this spicy flu. I think Pete would enjoy that one. And the Soylent 19, the vaccine is people shirt, because as we all know, the vaccine is people. Get those shirts and more at thesystemisdown.tv/store. We are also sponsored by the Royal Green, who has a title card here, if I can find it. Jack Casey, the Royal Green. Check out the Royal Green at theroyalgreen.com. Jack Casey does some great work. He writes some books, and I don't read because I'm not smart like that. My IQ isn't as high as Pete's, so I get distracted easily. TheRoyalGreen.com is where you can get that and all of Jack Casey's work. He's got 3 books in this series, and he's working on another one right now. Check those out, because Jack Casey's an awesome dude who has the balls to support this show. You can also get Free Ounce of Kratom at freeounceofkratom.com. Kratom is currently, they had Delta-8 THC available there, and the government currently has their mitts on that down in Texas. Who would have thought? So that's currently out of stock, but they're working on a workaround for that. But they do still have Kratom, even though the federal government is working on making it a Class 1 federal felony to have Kratom, because there's no possible benefit to something that helps you focus, helps you quit your addiction of alcohol and drugs. There's no possible benefit to those things, according to the government. If you'd like to try it before it becomes a felony, try it now for free at freeounceofkratom.com, or get 5% off your entire order. Enter the promo code TSID and support them and everything they've got going on, and get yourself mentally healthy in the process. All right, that's that. That's all for the annoying plugs. But if you guys haven't heard, there's this new thing going around. It's not COVID. It's much more dangerous, much more deadly. It's the alt-right, I'm pretty sure. I don't know. We're going to find out. We're going to find out what it's all about on today's episode with my guest, who is, of course, the one, the only Mr. Pete Quinones. Pete Quinones, right?
Yeah. That's pretty good.
I think that's the first time.
I only say it at like the beginning of every episode. So
I lay awake at night trying to pronounce it in preparation for this moment, because I knew the day would come again where I would mispronounce your name, and then I totally failed at the beginning. But Pete, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm doing well. I know a lot of people are concerned about you these days, man. A lot of people are.
Oh yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that.
A lot of people are reading about a Jane leaving the cult.
I actually heard like somebody whose name you would know right away goes, Pete, people are saying they're scared of you. I'm like, these people are me, not the state, not the government, not the COVID tyranny. They're scared of me.
Yeah.
Are you people retarded? Come on.
The answer is yes. We all know the answer is yes. But so let's
the autistic army marches forward.
Yeah. I think it's funny. Like I don't have my thoughts entirely fleshed out on this thing. I've heard the arguments on both sides, and I wanted to, rather than attacking you on Twitter, I'd rather, slide into your DMs and invite you on and get a nice personal conversation about it, to be an actual human, which is something that libertarians have a problem with. But Pete, what's going on, man? What is this thing? What happened to you? Why are you backslidden? Why are you on the slippery slope to the alt-right?
So I guess the biggest mistake I've made is I invited Matt Erickson on to come to on my podcast to have a conversation. That's probably not the biggest mistake I made. Probably the biggest mistake I made was that I don't know about you, but when I go to title my podcasts, I'm usually high or drunk.
Sure.
And whatever comes first thing to my mind is what what I do.
Yeah.
So like I just released an episode with Dave Smith and Andrew of Popular Liberty, and I entitled it "Defending the Realm."
Mm-hmm.
Why did I entitle it that? I have no idea, because I was blackout drunk when I did that.
Let me guess, that's some sort of dog whistle or something that Hitler used once in a sentence or something like that.
Yeah. So so I just titled the podcast with Matt "Post-Libertarianism," something like that, because we were talking more about like how Hoppe wrote the book "Democracy: The God That Failed" and promoted the fact that monarchy would be preferable to democracy, and that some writers actually ran with that and didn't say that Hoppe was promoting that, but took it and said, well, since we're never going to get it to anarchy, monarchy would be. And so Matt and I were talking a lot about that and everything. So I just decided to entitle it "Post-Libertarian."
Mm-hmm.
And
is that the first time that phrase was used? Like, was that not a thing before?
I think Charles, who has just been on my show recently, used that in an episode a year ago, but I didn't know. I had only met Charlemagne at like a Mises event earlier than that, so I really didn't know him. I wasn't really paying attention. So I was myself and Bird from Timeline Earth had been doing episodes on postmodernism, so post was probably in my head, and I just threw that up there. And well, I mean, like libertarians ought to do, they turned it into something negative, where we were trying to do it something a little different. And once we started talking about it, a group of us started talking about it, we were like, well, we're really looking for praxis. So we started calling ourselves praxians, but by that time, post-libertarian stuck. And it went from being something that I came up with when I was really high to a pejorative against people who don't believe the non-aggression principle is apparently don't believe the non-aggression principle should be a part of libertarianism anymore. And, we can talk more about that and how that came about and how, I mean, everything is just like one straw man after another. So, but,
Yeah, and that's kind of the feeling I got. And even some people that I've seen attacking you, I've called them out. I'm not going to name names. If you know, you know. If you don't, whatever. But he said something. He said the trope of these people just hate the left more than they hate the state or something. It's like, just come up with
the left
phrases.
Is the state.
New
I know,
yeah.
but
It's
the
like,
left is the state.
Right. And
the left is the state, the academy, the corporate press, and big tech.
Right.
So who's the enemy? Who's the enemy? I mean, the only way that you think the left isn't the enemy is that leftist progressive thought has infiltrated libertarianism so much that you still think the right is more dangerous than the left, even though the left controlled everything, even when Donald Trump was in office.
Yeah. So explain what praxis or praxianism, or break that down a bit.
Well, praxis is the marriage between theory and how you carry it out.
Okay.
So you have this theory about how things should be, and so how do we make that happen? And I mean, for decades, libertarians have been like, well, how do we get to Ancapistan? How do we do this? And I met Fat Dave down in Tom Woods 2000, and he and his wife are like some of the nicest people I've ever met. Yeah. Everybody I met down there was really nice. It was such a good time. Yeah. Always have good time at events like that. I had a really good time at PorkFest until I brought home, the Wuhan flu.
Until you gave everyone COVID, you mean?
Yeah, until I gave everyone COVID.
Yeah.
But so it's just, so how do we get to Ancapistan? Well, Hoppe did a speech and wrote about it 24 years ago. And that's one way to some of us are like, well, that's one way to get to it. Some are like, well, we just have to go the complete agorist route and build up the system we want to see next, because they believe the system is falling apart.
Yeah.
I agree 100% with, I agree 100% with that too. Yeah. Very good. Very good. I remember the first time I was on Dave Smith's show, I actually said part of the problem, and I was like, oh, I'm an idiot.
Yeah, it's all good.
But can I need to just delete the chat here. Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it too much. And
yeah. Ignore them. They're all stupid. It's fine.
Lunacy. Idiots. Christopher Cantwell.
We'll get there. We'll get there. So the praxis thing. So you're basically just talking about, we all have this idea of what liberty is in our minds and everything, and anybody who goes against that is evil. But figuring out the path there might take some, as I put in the title, like power grabs. Basically, like we'll suspend the nap, or we'll suspend, our principles a little bit to play ball.
Well, that's the question. Okay. I'm one of those old Libertarians who used to be like, voting is violence.
Sure.
Voting is a violation of the nap. Well, I don't believe that anymore. I think it's actually ridiculous. Rothbard didn't believe that. Hoppe doesn't believe that. Mises didn't believe that. So where did that come from? I believe it came from the left again.
Sure.
The left infiltrates everything. And so one thing that we all have in common, the people who are in a praxian group, is that, well, maybe not so much Tho Bishop, but we saw COVID. As soon as COVID started, we all went, okay, this is a game changer. This is not going away in 2 months. This is not going away in 3 months. This is going to be with us until somebody does something about it. And we came together based upon that. And we're just like, okay, how do we defeat this? And like I said, some people are like, well, let's do the Hoppe what must be done strategy. And some people are like, agorism, way to go. And other people are just like, become the anarch, like Ernst Junger talks about in the Forest Passage and in a lot of his writings. Yeah. And I'm down with all of it and everything. I just, I think that, I guess where my hubris is that I think that like anybody else, that the path that I'm taking, if I decide to take the political path, then anyone else who's taking an alternate political path is not going to do as well as I am, because ego, hubris, everything. And I spoke out about it, and I've tried to apologize for it on online and in the Dave episode and everything like that. I don't want to fight with, my current friends, former allies, still allies, the people in the Mises caucus and the LP. Well, I mean, there's certain people in the LP that I'd absolutely like to crush, but
sure.
That's a different thing. Because, if you're going to use the term libertarian, you'd at least like it to mean something.
Yeah.
And so, and like the agorists, and then I see that coming back, my attitude coming back at me, in that most hardcore agorists are agorism or nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like, well, if you're going to use the state, you want to be a king over me. And I'm like, how about we influence our local town to maybe privatize some things, become a little more libertarian. And while we basically gain a little bit of control, you guys start building things and we run interference for you. Mm-hmm. So you want to build an electrical grid out. You want to build an electrical grid that would serve thousands outside of the system. We'll run interference for you. You want to build a new water treatment plant that's outside the system. We'll run. You want to build a homeschooling network, which, I mean, I think homeschooling will be one of the things in the next 5 years that is going to be outlawed. Yeah. And so we'll run interference for you. And yeah, I mean, you get so much pushback and so many people just like, well, that's not the libertarianism I was taught. Well, it's also not the libertarianism that I was taught either, but I had to read more and I had to go looking for what the great libertarians thought were good strategies.
And most of these libertarians that you're reading, they didn't grow up in the COVID regime. I mean, sure they had their own tyranny to struggle with and everything, but I don't know. I think it's interesting, like, where is the line for, if we're talking about, voting to enforce, I guess, laws that fight back against some of this COVID bullshit. Like, where is the line where that is the non-aggression or a violation of the non-aggression principle, or defense? Like, if they're attacking you with this thing that is oppressing your life, and you decide to use that power to fight back against that, at what point do some of the angry people in the chat? I'm curious. Also, like, where is that line for, like, this is defense. They've struck. The first blow has been made. This is just fighting back against that.
Well, I'm not going to name the podcast or name the people who were on it, but if I named it, you would know who they are.
Sure.
You would know who everybody was. And they were having a conversation about how does libertarianism defeat fascism? How does libertarianism defeat, like tyranny? And the conversation I was hearing just absolutely floored me, because it's like, well, you have to play defense. You have to wait until the very last minute when, when the other side has gathered all their power, has figured out how they're going to do this, and then you can do something. And the person said,
the bullet has to have left the chamber, and then you may strike back.
And then they said, and they said, then you can pick up guns. And I'm one of those people who's like, if you have to pick up guns, you've already lost.
Sure. And
Sun Tzu, Art of War, to read it. I've read it 10 times. I mean, it's simple. You can read it. You can read it in a couple hours.
Yeah.
If you have to pick up guns, you've already lost. And most governments don't realize that when they pick up guns, that they've already lost when they do that. And so I'm listening to this and I'm like, how you get so caught up in your principles that any kind of solution that you come up with in the real world. Like, I've seen people attack Scott Horton on Twitter because Scott Horton said, hey, they're voting on a Yemen resolution today to get out of Yemen. Please call your congressman. Mm-hmm. And all of these agorists and anarchists come in there and go, oh, so you're begging for your liberty now? I'm not kidding. Scott and I talked about
begging people to stop killing people. That's all. Like, that's
we actually
not
addressed this on our new podcast, the End of the Empire. It's ridiculous. I mean, how has libertarianism gone from Mises, who fought in the First World War, was an infantryman in the First World War, and then worked for a fascist regime, I mean, a quasi-fascist regime that was taking in escaping Jews from Nazi Germany, which is, that's why I love when people call Mises a fascist. It's like, I mean, they were taking it, but okay, whatever. Yeah. I mean, they don't even know what
very fascist behavior there. He was forcing them to leave the concentration camps. Pete, that's violating the NAP.
If you read the first documents of trying to outline fascism from 1916, 1917, it reads like progressivism today. Mm-hmm. Women voting, women having equal rights, all this. Getting weirder stuff. I mean, just we know that transgenderism isn't new. I mean, they had it in Rome. Sure. They've had it in the friggin' Indian tribes. The American Indian tribes had an issue with that. I mean, this isn't new stuff.
Yeah.
And they were talking about it back then, and they were championing it back then. I don't know how I got off on that, but just people don't know what fascism is. I mean, fascism is not when 50 years ago, before World War II, if you would have said fascism, people would have thought economics. Mm-hmm. Now you think, well, that person thinks that the borders, there should be a place at the border where the person checks in, tells who they are, gets tested for a disease, to see if they have any diseases, and then they could come in. Well, the person who advocates for that, that's a fascist now. So, I mean, we live in leftist clown world, even in libertarianism, even in mainstream libertarianism. I see Rothbardians saying, people who call themselves Rothbardians saying this. Rothbard wouldn't have said that. Oh, but we don't listen to 90s Rothbard. Well, believe me, I was there too at one time that didn't want to read 90s Rothbard, but and thought Hoppe, there was something really wrong with Hoppe. But I mean,
I don't know much about Hoppe, but I'm open to it. I don't care. I hold none of my cults. I hold too sacred to question even my faith and stuff like that. That's been a long part of the journey to where I am now. Is the show started out talking more about religious stuff even than libertarianism stuff. And I'm just like, it's fine. We can explore these things together and decide what works and what doesn't. But with you brought up I don't even remember how you put it, but we're talking about people LARPing in the Libertarian Party, or people LARPing as far as they're going to take up arms against the government, that they're going to get down to that point where they take up arms. But are you really? Because you still haven't. And I'm not convinced that any of these people are. And the people that are saying I would take up arms against government, to defend myself. They're having a problem with you saying, I think we should take up political arms against government, like, because that's LARPing. It's LARPing all around, but go ahead.
That's because libertarianism has become a cult that their biggest enemy is the government. I mean, literally, if you want to change yourself, if you want change, the first thing you're gonna have to do is change yourself, change who you are. And you can't get beyond that. I mean, if you're a terrible person, I mean, who's going to listen to you? I mean,
everybody. We're talking about presidents.
Well, yeah, it becomes pretty evident, pretty quickly. I mean, look how many people in libertarianism get called out for being just shitty people in their personal life and stuff like that. I mean, come on, I mean, it's just, I don't get this whole we're going to take up arms against the government. It's first of all, you're right, they're not. They're going to be the last person to take up arms against their government. They're
maybe not the last,
saying
but
that,
they're not going to be first.
They're just saying that because that's what they've been told. That's what they've been taught, and I don't know who taught them that. Yeah, when you look, first of all, anyone in their right mind wouldn't talk about taking guns up against the government because it would be the worst thing possible. Somebody asked me on a live stream recently. They said, "How would you fight the government?" How I said, well, you would have to have legitimacy behind you. So if you're in a small town and the government comes and people show up to force vaccinate, you have the sheriff, you have the whole police department on your side to meet them and say, no, you're not coming in here. And then maybe they deputize a bunch of people who have rifles and know how to use them to come and stand with them. You have to have an air of legitimacy, or else you are just going to be you're going to be made out to be like the Branch Davidians or Randy Weaver.
Yeah.
So it's saying stuff like that is just so stupid. It's people not thinking. And I mean, it's just, and the person I heard say this is just a young kid. I mean, hasn't even moved out of his parents' house yet.
Yeah.
Isn't past 21 years old. And I'm just like, come on, man. Well, I know I sound like Biden. Come on, man. But it's like, how do you get to this point at 21 when you should have all the time in the world to be reading, and you're not getting that from Rothbard, Hoppe, or Mises. Mm-hmm. Where are you getting that from?
Yeah. Some high time preference there. They're in a real big hurry to get shot, I guess. I don't know.
Oh, it sounds like low time preference. Like they're going to wait till the very last minute.
To be honest, I don't get the stupid time preference bullshit, and it drives me fucking crazy. Because high time preference sounds to me like it would be, it sounds like inverted. So I always get them mixed up. But who cares?
It is inverted.
That's what we're here to talk about. But so my biggest question is like, why this? So we've got libertarians who you agree with basically on everything except for, how we are, what we are willing to do to get the end goal, the means of getting to the end. What is it that really separates you from like libertarianism on the whole, not just like not everybody's individual opinions about what libertarian is and what real libertarian should or shouldn't be. Would you consider yourself still a libertarian but with this offshoot, or are you like screw libertarianism, this is something completely different?
Well, I mean, I think I'm the only real libertarian. Come on.
Sure.
You knew that was coming. Look, I just when it comes down to it, I just want to be left alone. I mean, I just want to be left alone to live my life in peace. And I think that what I hear from most people is that we just have to wait this out, and
trust the plan.
Yeah. Well, and really that's a lot of it. The whole idea of like, there's the people who are like, well, it's going to collapse. And it's like, I read Lenin and I read Engels, and Engels and they both make a really good argument. I think it's impenetrable for why you don't want that to happen. That's why they hated the anarcho-communists, is because the anarcho-communists just wanted to collapse everything.
Right.
When it's really going to take incrementalism, if you want anything to be left once everything collapses. And if everything just collapses all of a sudden, the people who are the people who already own and run everything, 99% of the people are just going to ask them to come back into power. I was in Romania like not very long after communism fell. And first of all, once they had elections again, they just elected the communist leaders back into office. And one of the most common things I heard was, and remember, Romania fell like almost overnight. And it was just like they forced down Ceausescu's helicopter, killed him and his wife. Boom. Now it's like, hey, here we go. I mean, people would say we really miss communism.
Yeah.
Because there was some sense of, because I think they said there was some sense of order. And, at that time, trying to get everything, because the country was so poor as well. And they were like, we need to get into the European Union at this point. That was like their whole goal, why they were, smashing, and they just wanted to be in the European Union. They were putting down anything that would look bad to them at the time. So collapsing, it just doesn't work. I mean, there has to be some way to, and revolution's not going to work. I'm sorry, it's not 1776 anymore.
Sure.
And the government is just the government's not 3,000, isn't 3,000 miles away, separated by an ocean anymore. They're in your backyard.
We've got space nukes now, guys. Space nukes. Yeah. So I don't know what your plan is.
But it needs to be done incrementally, and to me, incrementalism is agorism and working locally politically to make some change and change some people's minds politically, and maybe start working on getting one of those Liechtensteins set up in your town, like the 10,000 Hans Hermann Hoppe, once talked about instituting 24 years ago in his What Must Be Done speech.
Yeah. So I think the biggest problem that a lot of people have with this whole thing, at least to my understanding of it, is just there's a new label and they don't like it because it sounds like after libertarian, and that means we're not libertarian. That means we're Republicans, which means we're alt-right, which means we're Nazis. There's that pipeline just in broad daylight. Why do you even need a new title? Because you're still just wanting to be left alone, wanting people to do their thing. Why not just, there are libertarians who are trying to get into office to do the things that you're talking about as libertarians. Some of them are running as Republicans, some of them are running as Democrats, and I certainly have no problem with that. But why do we need a new, what's the word? Like when churches split up, a new denomination of libertarianism, just to create more confusion and chaos.
Well, we don't, and we never set out for that to happen.
Oops.
People just
thanks, Twitter.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it was like, and once it started running wild, it was like people were like, "Oh, so what's this?" It was drawing so much attention that I was like, "I'm not going to run away from this."
Sure.
I mean, bad press is good, is press,
sure.
And everything. And we're working. There's some of us who are working behind the scenes doing things that we don't really want out in the public, because we think that we have some really good strategies that if people found out about them would be, stopped dead in their tracks and everything, maybe like Trojan horse kind of stuff.
Like working alongside Richard Spencer and infiltrating the alt-right. Yeah.
That would everybody wants
getting
to
his
be
12 supporters on board with you.
Yeah. Everybody wants to be a Fed. Everybody wants to be a gay Fed. But but yeah, so it's just really a bunch of people who immediately understood what COVID was doing, what they were going to do through COVID, and just are saying that now's the time. Honestly, I started my podcast in July of 2017. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
March of 2020, February 2020 rolls around. That's when I did my first episode on COVID. And what did I talk about in all that time? Just theory. What would defense look like in Ancapistan? That's just all bullshit. It's just talk. Sure, it's fine.
It's fun.
But I think one thing that you will, I think most people who are sober would have to agree that in the last 20 months, what we found out was that the idea of seeing Ancapistan in our lifetime, that's a stretch.
Yeah,
it's a stretch.
It's getting farther and farther away the longer we go into this thing. So, like, I understand, especially like I've been against the whole COVID bullshit as well since the beginning, and like seeing all this stuff come down and talking to like Liberty Down Under in Australia and seeing the stuff that they're going through, it's like at some point, like just debating theory and having debates between two autists that like 12 libertarians enjoy listening to, it's not really gonna bring that liberty back any closer when we're seeing like it's so far out of view now. Like we can't even get back to where we were a year and a half ago. So like, what's the plan?
I like what Jason Booth, I mean, I think everybody knows Jason. Jason's freaking awesome. Says here, he goes, post-libertarian, thinking beyond the libertarian echo chamber.
Sure.
That's pretty good. I like that. I like that. That's pretty good. And that's really what it is, you know, Dave, I put out the episode with Dave and Andrew Popular Liberty yesterday, and
it's a great episode.
Thank you. Immediately, God, I was so drunk by the end of that, and high as balls.
Yeah.
But immediately some of the reaction was, well, we just don't like this thing about abandoning the NAP. And then when it's like, okay, how are we abandoning the non-aggression principle? And when you push them, it's, well, you're celebrating what Abbott and DeSantis are doing to private businesses down in Florida and in Texas by saying that they can't impose, mandates or anything like that. Right. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm celebrating it, but I'm not running away from it.
Yeah.
I mean, in theory, when this government started, the government was to protect people. Job was to, when you look at the Bill of Rights, it was to protect individual rights. And what those Bill of Rights are things that the government cannot do to individuals. And I think if business in a small town, the only business in a small town that provides water decides they don't want to do business with somebody in that small town because they haven't taken an experimental vaccine, maybe the government maybe a good government, a good state that protects individual rights would be smart to step in and go, no, that person, give them the water. If they're going to pay for it, give them the water. So
you're kind of taking,
and also, but then there's also that whole group of libertarians that that I used to be.
Mm-hmm.
So I know exactly where they're coming from, that voting is violence. Voting is is against the NAP and everything. Right. And it's like, I mean, these people really must hate the Free State Project, because I know a lot of the Free State Project is going in there and voting. Yeah. And then they really must hate Rothbard, Hoppe, and Mises.
Yeah.
Because none of them had anything to say against voting. Now, if you want to go all the way back to Spooner, but even Spooner makes the argument that most people are just voting in self-defense.
Right.
So
yeah, it's like the government has a monopoly on violence, and they're pointing a gun at you. You're using power to turn that gun around in their hand, still using their hand to pull the trigger. Like, I don't see what the big deal is, frankly. It seems like a lot of the reeing online, like I said, is just to do with new phrasing. And so this whole, you're using government to violate the NAP type thing. Dig into that just a little bit. Like, how is it not, what do you think their biggest argument is for why this is like throwing out the NAP or whatever?
Okay, so Hoppe's what must be done strategy is basically a bunch of libertarians, liberty-minded people using the GOP, and I'm sorry, that's just what that's what he prescribed. Sure. And it seems like they have entrenched power. So to get in there and start influencing, getting a couple people elected and start influencing, and like one of the first things he's like, well, anyone who's making making their living off of the state can't vote, because you're voting your own incentives.
Sure.
So, and if you're not a property owner, you can't vote. things like that, and to start privatizing the school, have natural elites become more. You're basically his idea is you're influencing the government to basically secede.
Yeah.
And in doing that, if you're a libertarian, you're basically becoming the local government. And that's what you can have control over, or you can become a lobbyist and you can really influence the local government. The biggest problem with a lot of these lawbirds is the fact that they're like, you're trying to take over government so you're going to take over government power and you're going to use it against us.
Yeah.
So basically, and Andrew of Popular Liberty says that when libertarians talk about power, they talk about it like a morality issue, the same way communists talk about capitalism as like a morality issue. And neither one of them are morality issues. They're engineering issues. It's how do you engineer them? And then Matt Erickson said, and I'm going to paraphrase him here, he basically said that communists want to take over the means of production and centralize it to the people. He goes, but think about it. Anarchists want to do the same thing with state power. They want to eliminate the government and give every individual the power of statecraft.
Sure.
How many people do you know that you do not want to see have the power of statecraft in their own hands?
I can't think of any off the top of my head that
you can't think of anybody that you wouldn't that you would be uncomfortable having the power having.
No, I can't think of any that I would want to have the power. No,
you would. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, and it's like Jason says here, government exists whether I want it to or not, and it doesn't care if I want it to or not. So trying to influence government is an act of self-defense. It's great, I mean, and I know it's an appeal to authority fallacy to say, okay, this is what Hoppe, this is Hoppe's plan, probably the greatest libertarian alive. Maybe listen to him. I know that's an appeal to authority fallacy, but it's still true.
Mm-hmm.
Hear him out. If he thinks this is the way to get to private cities and things like that, and it might be the best way. Well, what better time than now when what better time than now? Great. Friggin' quoting communists now. Then
we have nothing left to lose but our chains, kids.
So, I mean, if he's saying that this is the best way to get to private cities and to get to those, 10,000 Liechtensteins of private cities of private property, I mean, it's hard for me to look at it and argue, especially when I have someone like Andrew who's, drawing up plans to actually implement real world systems that would achieve those goals. So and something that I agree with, something that I can look at as a big picture guy. I can look at and be like, okay, it's not going to be perfect, but we can make this work and we can tweak it along the way. And just the fact that we're saying that we have to, that the way you would do that is you'd be doing it with local government. It just makes people like crazy because they've been taught that anything, they hate the state more than anything else. I mean, they're literally like Christians and Satan.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, it's just, well, Satan's responsible for every evil. I don't sin. Satan makes me sin. Sure. I've been in churches that say that.
I don't pay taxes. The government forces me to pay taxes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So with, I know that there's a GOP Mises caucus, which I think is hilarious. I thought about starting the Mandalorian Party Mises caucus just to fuck with Delaware guys over there. But do you support if somebody was like is the GOP Mises caucus thing like a new thing? Are they trying to work with the Mises caucus of the Libertarian Party? If there was, would you support a Mises caucus in the Democratic Party? Like, is this just to spread the same type of messaging, or is this because I know that there's a lot of Mises people that are very concerned about this just corrupting the entire thing that they've been working their asses off to influence the Libertarian Party and use that to influence the drill. But what are your thoughts?
Andrew came up with that name like literally right after the Libertarian Party Mises caucus.
Really?
came into existence. And
son of a bitch, we were there first. And since he's a Republican, he should believe in IP, and he should give us.
And then there's a blue check mark on Twitter who his name seems to make him think that he's like the king of the libertarians, who accused the GOP Mises Caucus of like using that name to siphon off funds from the Libertarian Party Mises Caucus. Like, people aren't smart enough to be able to tell the difference.
Right.
It's almost like that bigotry of low expectations when Democrats are talking about black people and things like that.
Right.
Yeah. So, it was, and then there was the other argument where, you're just going off a name recognition. And it's like, well, yeah, the Mises Caucus wasn't using the Mises Institute as name recognition at all.
Right. And the Mises Institute wasn't using, Mises' name at all.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But no, the GOP Mises Caucus was something that he came up with because he just decided that really the praxeological way to do this, the best way to do it, according to him, would be to do it through the GOP.
Sure.
So just came up with that name and ran with it, much the way another caucus came up with that name and ran with it. But the
pay them no mind, Pete.
Oh no, I'm looking at Dave. Dave's fine. Dave's one of the few people I have no problem taking criticism from, because
sure.
I know it's coming from a good place.
Yeah, Dave's a wonderful, beautiful asshole.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, the GOP Mises Caucus was just Andrew's idea, and we finally got it to a PAC, and we finally gotten to the point where we're going to run our first candidate through the GOP locally in Lockhart, Texas, for the city council, and that's Buck Johnson of the Counterflow podcast, formerly the Death to Tyrants podcast, and we're looking to.
So he's an alt-right Nazi too, eh? That's good to know.
Of course,
put that on the list, guys.
So
it's growing.
Yes,
pipeline grows.
So we're looking at him and a couple other people in Lockhart, and starting to do Andrew's anti-tax there. Please do not ask me to talk about the anti-tax, as you're better off just going to listen to my episode with Andrew where he explains it, because I'm not going to do it justice.
Yeah, and we don't have to spend time on it if you don't want to, but that was another point I was going to bring up. Just that was something that concerned me a little bit, this talk of, and I can understand why it would concern others, this talk of like, we're not going to get rid of taxes, we're going to shift the taxes to use them against our opponents. And I can kind of see where they're going with that. But at the same time, I can also see why people would be like, so you're pushing for more taxes, just taxing your enemies. But again, at what point is that defense? If somebody's using them against you, you turn them around and shoot them in the face with their own gun? I don't know.
We're done playing defense.
Yeah.
We're done playing defense. I mean, that's all I have to say about it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can use it as a weapon against your enemies.
Yeah.
All right. I'm sorry, but these people need to be broken. They have held power for 100 years.
Yeah.
They need to be taken down. So
now I know a lot of people hear the Democrats are the establishment. They are the enemy, basically. That's what you're saying here. And they take that to be scary. It's some scary talk there. That's some Donald Trump talk points there. What is keeping you even associated with, I guess, libertarianism? You're kind of right in the middle, where you're taking both, which I have no problem with. I think it's good.
Who gets to define what libertarianism is?
The Libertarian Party, obviously.
Okay, then we're obviously alt-right Nazis.
Right.
Who,
Yeah, I don't know. It's frustrating to me because, like, I am on board with the Mises Caucus libertarian stuff, but I'm also like, if somebody wants to run as a Republican, I don't care. Just whoever can fix this shit,
I got a text from Michael Heiss as we started this.
Really?
You don't think I talked to? I'm okay with the Mises Caucus.
Oh yeah, I know you are.
I'm okay with the Mises Caucus. I just I wanted them to narrow their focus.
Yes.
And then I was attacked by somebody who I was personally attacked by somebody who apparently was part of the founding of the Mises Caucus, but hasn't been part of the Mises Caucus for 2 or 3 years. And then they let on in the attack like they were still part of the Mises Caucus. And my conspiratorial mind is wondering if that person did that with the express goal of sowing division and actually trying to get me to openly be hostile to the Mises Caucus, which on the episode with Dave, I apologize for.
Yeah.
I was duped, and I've been duped. I'm sorry. I love everybody in the Mises Caucus. I mean, Angela McArdle is one of my favorite people in the whole world, and I want her to be the chair of the Libertarian Party. Yeah. I want to see them take over the LP. I think there are some things they may not. I hope that I haven't talked to Michael about, but I hope they're ready for, because party politics is really, really ugly and everything. But I want nothing more than for them to succeed, and to work together with them, in whatever way we can.
Yeah.
I'm on the board of the GOP Mises Caucus as an advisor, and I want it to work because I think our goals are focused on it's a path towards what Hoppe talked about. That's what our goal is. Is to nullify along the way, nullify things that are happening like the COVID regime and anything else will pop up probably pretty soon. It's going to be the climate change regime, because I think that as soon as COVID starts to die down just a little bit, that's going to ramp up.
Oh, I've already got a T-shirt in the store for that, for the climate mandates that are coming. So you guys can get that. You can get ahead of the curve.
Yeah. So I know that we can do that, but our goal is just laser focused on Hoppe, on what Hoppe was talking about in that, getting some Liechtensteins open and getting some private societies open and across the country and having that spread. I think that especially if it's beneficial for the people involved, and you have a local government that's actually running interference against the state government and the federal government for you, which is one of the main goals of that, while seeking to crush your enemies. Sounds good to me. I think it's time to crush our enemies, people. There a lot of fucking people have died in the last 20 months over government incompetence, and who knows what the hell is going on. People have killed themselves, people have lost businesses, and their lives have been destroyed. I mean, I know personally people whose lives have been absolutely devastated by this thing that you have a 99.97% chance of surviving. And people are like, well, when are the people who how are those people, how are they going to pay for that? And it's like, and the people who ask that could possibly also be the ones who'd be like, well, how are you going to make Fauci pay for it? It's like, well, how would he pay for it? The state would have to do it, right? So now you're advocating you're advocating for state action.
Same thing. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, and it's interesting and confusing much of the time, and I can see why some people would see this as bad timing, just on that Dave Smith is building up this Mises Caucus thing, and Mike Heiss is building up this Mises Caucus thing, and you guys, I'm not saying you are, but I know some people are going to see this and be like, oh, they're just raining on our parade or whatever. I know that you're not, but I can see why some people would be confused.
I did, and I apologize for it.
Sure,
I did. I was openly hostile and scorched earth there for a while.
Yeah,
and I'm wrong. I was wrong, and I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, I would like to see the two work together, but there's people like Justin O'Donnell in the chat bringing up the Cantwell stuff, which I'm not old enough to know who Chris Cantwell is or to give two shits, but I've heard his name thrown around quite a bit as a conversion down the pipeline rabbit hole from libertarianism to the alt-right. I don't know, what happened there, and how do you see this as something that is completely unrelated to that trend?
It was late at night drinking, and somebody from the Free State Project, somebody who's I think everyone would know their name since they have a terrestrial radio show, a friend of mine who just had a kid and has another kid on the way is talking about moving to Texas. And this person, this radio show host and creator, comes in and says, well, you go to mention something about how strip clubs in Texas and weed and everything like that, and how that would be handled in Texas. And that's like the last thing that is on this mom's mind.
Mm-hmm.
So I immediately am like, why the hell are you bringing up degeneracy? When this person is like talking about moving to Texas.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I get that the Free State Project is an evangelical organization trying to get as many people to come there as possible.
Sure.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I get it. This person has a special level of autism that is off the charts. And it really fucking pissed me off. And I mistakenly said that because I know they're part of the Free State Project, that I started to give my opinion about why I think the Free State Project isn't going to work, which I still believe until I'm talking to Jeremy Kauffman tomorrow night. And Jeremy is somebody that I actually really respect.
Sure.
Because we have a lot in common in a lot of the things that we've read and beliefs that we have. And I'm going to allow him to explain to me how you're going to get to a free state when you have so many leftists in there.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm sure Jeremy will change my mind.
You
Because
think so?
Jeremy's never called me Chris Cantwell or a Nazi or anything like that. So
yeah, it's not the best place to start, especially when
hearing him.
When there's a whole lot of libertarians came from the right, and they're here because they realize the problems with the right, and now they're leaning back just enough to say, hey, this is where some power currently is. It's not that much different than, I know some people aren't going to like me making this comparison, but to the Mises Caucus thing, or really any caucus, any political affiliation that's trying to, take over a party or trying to get the amount of votes to make change. This isn't any different than that, other than, we might flirt with another party in doing so. And I think that, like I said, sure, let's do a Democratic Mises Caucus. Wherever we can get this influence, wherever we can, filter in libertarians, I have no problem with that, and I don't think you do either. And the Libertarian Party can keep doing whatever it is they do. It doesn't matter. The more the merrier. And I think the scare around this is a whole lot of confusion, and I hope that we've shed a little bit of light on it today. Pete, are you good to stick around for just a few more minutes and do some
Sure,
bonus
obviously.
afterwards?
Yeah, come on, let's do it.
Sweet. Well, Pete, thank you for being here first and foremost, and thank you for all the awesome work that you do, man. Tell everybody where they can find out all the information about you and the Mises Institute, everything, all your documentaries and everything you got going on.
Freeman Beyond the Wall podcast. I have a Monopoly on Violence. It's a documentary on Amazon Prime that was almost a lot shot at the Mises Institute. A lot of the interviews were there. Substack, petequinones.substack.com, by any means necessary. And of course, the Libertarian Institute, Scott Horton, myself, Sheldon Richmond, Kyle Anzalone, Patrick McFarland, Keith Knight, all those guys. We're doing a fundraiser. We're doing our end of the year fundraiser right now, and it's all tax deductible because we're a 501c3. So, and also some of you Bitcoin billionaires out there could throw some money our way too. That'd be nice.
Mm-hmm.
And you can find me on Twitter. I'm gonna try not to scorch too much earth now. I'm gonna chill out, relax, and try to mend some fences and build some alliances, and hopefully people can forgive me.
Absolutely. Well, Pete. I did forget to mention. Somebody commented on this earlier today because I've got this stupid Hail Meta thing going on. They said if you get Pete Q to say Hail Meta, I'll buy a shirt. So
I'm doing it.
The
first time I heard that, I knew it came from Libertarian Twitter, because it's like annoying and useless.
It came from me, and it is annoying and useless, and that is the point. But I've sold at least 2 shirts, so not entirely useless. But
Hail meta.
Thanks, Pete. I appreciate it, and thanks for being here, man.
That's 3 shirts.
That's right. All right, guys, thank you for tuning in to the live stream. Thank you for sticking around. I hope that you've learned a little something, and we're going to keep this party going for a little bit longer. Over in the Downers Club, go to patreon.com/The System Is Down and get in there for as little as $5 a month, and you'll get bonus episodes of the show every week. Usually like 2, 3, 4 sometimes. It's stupid how much I give you. It's basically free. So go check it out at patreon.com/The System Is Down. And yeah, if you're in that Facebook group, we're going to be kicking the live stream there in just a couple minutes. But thank you all for being here. And thank you for having an open mind and not being stupid shithole libertarians sometimes. We're an insufferable bunch, but it's fun. I love you guys, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Until then, please continue to question everything, stay uncomfortable, and I'll talk to you guys Wednesday. And I think we're doing another live stream Friday with another guest. So stick around and we'll talk to you then. Peace out.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe on your way out and help us change the world one uncomfortable conversation at a time. And if you like what you hear and you want to hear more, go join the Downers Club at patreon.com/The System Is Down for bonus episodes of the show every single week. Until next time, please continue to question everything, stay uncomfortable, and I'll talk to you then. Thanks.
This has been a Goulash Media production. GoulashMedia.net.
This concludes our broadcast day. Click.